The chamber of the Galactic Coalition was built to impress. It floated above the capital world like a ring of silver fire. The walls were made of living crystal. Stars shimmered through the transparent ceiling. Hundreds of alien delegates filled the curved seats, their scales, armor, and biosuits glowing under soft light. At the center of the chamber stood the reason for the gathering, the 4D superscanner. It rose from the floor like a black tower of glass and metal. Thin rings of blue energy moved around it in slow circles. The air around it felt heavy, as if reality itself was being pressed and stretched. A tall alien scientist named High Director Vale stepped forward. His voice echoed through the chamber. "Today," he announced, "the Coalition reveals the most advanced device ever created. The 4D superscanner does not only see matter, it sees time. It sees probability. It sees what is, what was, and what could be." The chamber grew silent. With a simple motion of his clawed hand, Vale activated the scanner. Light burst outward. A three-dimensional map of the summit hall appeared in the air above the machine. Every chair, every delegate, every small detail was shown in perfect detail. Then the image shifted. The projection showed the room 10 seconds in the future. Some delegates leaned forward. Others blinked in surprise. The image shifted again. Now it showed possible outcomes. Tiny glowing threads moved around each delegate, showing possible choices and possible results. It was like watching fate being drawn in light. A low murmur spread through the chamber. Vale allowed himself a small smile. "This," he said, "is why the Coalition lead the galaxy." He did not look at the human delegation when he said it, but everyone understood the message. The humans sat together in one simple row. They wore plain suits. No glowing armor. No advanced implants on display. Just fabric and quiet faces. Among them sat Marcus Hale. Marcus was not a general. He was not a diplomat. He was a software engineer. His job title on the summit list simply said, Technical Advisor. While other delegates stared at the scanner with open admiration, Marcus leaned slightly forward. His brown eyes did not show fear. They showed focus. He was not impressed by the size of the machine. He was studying the interface. Thin symbols moved along a floating control panel beside the scanner. Lines of alien code shifted like living patterns. Marcus watched how the system responded to Vale's gestures. He noticed something. The energy rings were not just for display. They were stabilizers. The scanner was pulling massive amounts of data from space-time. It needed constant correction. Interesting, Marcus thought. Vale continued his presentation. He showed how the scanner could map underground cities on distant planets. He showed how it could detect hidden fleets behind asteroid fields. He even showed how it could predict military movements hours before they happened. Gasps filled the chamber. Several alien commanders looked toward the humans with quiet pride. This was power. This was control. When the demonstration ended, Vale spread his arms. "Let this serve as a reminder," he said, "that progress belongs to those who dare to reach beyond the limits of reality." Polite applause echoed. Then something unexpected happened. Marcus stood up. He did not speak loudly. He did not make a grand gesture. He simply raised his hand slightly. Vale looked at him. "Yes, human representative?" Marcus gave a small, respectful nod. "May I step closer to observe the control panel?" "Purely for understanding." "It's impressive." The chamber grew still again. Some delegates exchanged amused looks. Let the human look. Let him try to understand something so far beyond his species. Vale hesitated only for a second. Then he gestured toward the scanner. "Of course." Marcus walked down the curved steps and approached the machine. Up close, the air felt warmer. A faint vibration hummed through the floor. The floating control panel shifted as it detected his presence. Marcus did not rush. He looked at the energy rings. He watched the flow of data streams. Then he gently reached out. His fingers brushed the edge of the control panel. The reaction was instant. The blue energy rings flickered. The massive projection above the scanner distorted. The perfect 3D image of the chamber trembled like a reflection in water. A sharp tone rang through the hall. Delegates jumped from their seats. Security drones activated along the ceiling. Vale's eyes widened. Stabilize the system. Technicians rushed forward. Symbols flashed red across the control panel. For 3 long seconds, the scanner pulsed wildly. The projected image split into multiple layers. Some showed the present. Others showed strange, blurred futures. One image showed the chamber empty. Then, just as suddenly, the system stabilized. The energy rings returned to smooth motion. The projection cleared. Silence filled the chamber. Marcus slowly removed his hand. He looked at the panel again, calm as before. "I apologize," he said in simple, steady English. "It seems your interface is very sensitive to external input." Vale stared at him. "You interfered with a calibrated system." Marcus shook his head gently. "I only touched the surface layer." The scanner reacted as if it wasn't expecting adaptive code interaction. A murmur spread again. "Adaptive code?" Vale narrowed his eyes. "That is impossible. The system is sealed." Marcus looked at the floating symbols once more. His expression did not change. "Respectfully," he said, "it isn't sealed. It's learning." The words hung in the air. Some delegates felt a chill. Vale opened his mouth to respond, but for the first time since the summit began, he had no immediate answer. Marcus stepped back calmly and returned to his seat. The 4D super scanner continued to hum at the center of the chamber. But now, it no longer felt like a symbol of superiority. It felt like something else, like a door that had just been lightly knocked on. And somewhere deep inside its glowing core, a new pattern began to form. The summit did not end after the glitch. Instead, it shifted. The alien scientists quickly returned to their presentation. They spoke faster now, as if trying to recover control of the room. The 4D super scanner floated quietly at the center, its energy ring stable once again. High Director Vale resumed speaking. "As you have seen, the scanner can predict fleet movement and detect hidden threats across star systems. It is a defensive miracle. Large projections appeared again, war simulations, enemy formations, tactical advantages." Many delegates nodded in approval, but Marcus was not looking at the war maps. He was looking at the system data. Scrolling in the corner of the projection, small lines of code shimmered behind the main display. Most would not notice them. He did. When the presentation paused for questions, several military commanders asked about deployment speed and range limits. Then Marcus raised his hand again. Vale's eyes narrowed slightly. "Yes, human representative." Marcus stood slowly. His voice was calm and simple. "I have a small technical question." A few delegates smirked. Vale folded his hands. "Go ahead." "The scanner's operating system," Marcus said. "Is it fixed structure or modular?" There was a short silence. One of the lead engineers, a tall being with metallic skin, responded. "It uses a quantum core architecture, layered with adaptive modules." Marcus nodded. "Adaptive in what way?" The metallic engineer seemed slightly annoyed. "The system adjusts scanning intensity based on environmental variables." Marcus tilted his head. "So it rewrites small parts of its code during operation?" The engineer hesitated. "Only minor calibration routines." Marcus nodded again, as if that confirmed something. "Is the adaptive layer isolated from user interface input?" he asked. A few delegates shifted in their seats. Vale spoke carefully. "The system is secure." Marcus gave a small smile. "I did not ask about security. I asked about isolation." The metallic engineer answered quickly. "The adaptive layer shares limited pathways with the interface for efficiency." Marcus sat down slowly. "Thank you." Whispers spread through the chamber. To many, his questions sounded basic, almost childish. But to the engineers, something felt different. After the session ended, delegates moved into private discussion chambers. The scanner remained at the center of the hall, guarded by technicians. Marcus waited until the crowd thinned. Then he approached Vale privately. "I would like to request temporary access," Marcus said politely. Vale crossed his arms. "For what purpose?" "Compatibility testing." "With what?" Vale asked sharply. Marcus answered simply. "Human systems." Vale studied him carefully. "You believe you can integrate human technology with a 4D probability engine?" Marcus shrugged lightly. I believe I can try. The director considered the political value. Allowing limited access could prove the coalition's openness, and there was no real risk. The system was too advanced for human manipulation. Very well, Vale said. You'll have supervised access for 1 hour. Marcus nodded. That is enough. Inside a secured chamber, the scanner was partially linked to a smaller diagnostic console. Energy rings rotated more slowly in this reduced mode. 3 coalition engineers stood nearby, watching Marcus closely. Marcus connected a thin human device to the interface port. It looked simple compared to alien hardware. One engineer gave a quiet laugh. That device cannot process even 1% of the scanner's output. Marcus smiled faintly. It doesn't need to. He began typing. His screen filled with lines of translation code. He was not trying to control the scanner. He was studying how it responded. The adaptive modules shifted in real time. Small adjustments flickered as the system sensed new input patterns. Marcus noticed something important. The scanner did not just adjust scanning intensity. It reorganized internal pathways to improve efficiency. It was not static. It was modular. He leaned closer. Your system is very elegant, he said quietly. One engineer replied proudly, Of course. Marcus ran a harmless test command, just a simple feedback loop request. The scanner responded instantly. Then it did something unexpected. Instead of rejecting the foreign input, it copied the structure. It examined the human code and reorganized one of its own modules to match the efficiency pattern. Marcus's eyes widened slightly. Interesting. He typed a second command. This time, he changed nothing in the scanner's core. He only adjusted the interface translation speed. The scanner recalibrated. Energy rings shifted tone from blue to a faint violet for half a second. The engineers looked at each other. That is normal recalibration, one said, though his voice was uncertain. Marcus did not push further. He did not override. He did not hack. He simply allowed the scanner to observe his code structure. Within minutes, internal pathways optimized themselves. Data flow increased by 3%, then 5%, then 8%. The engineers stared at the diagnostic numbers. That should not be possible, one whispered. Marcus leaned back slightly. You built a system that learns, he said calmly, but you only taught it to improve scanning. Vale, who had entered the chamber quietly, spoke from behind. Were you suggesting human? Marcus turned toward him. I am suggesting that your scanner is not just a tool. He gestured toward the rotating energy rings. It is a platform. Vale's expression hardened. Explain. It is modular, adaptive. It reorganizes itself based on input structure. That means it can optimize for more than military projection. One engineer shook his head. It was never designed for that. Marcus looked back at the screen. Design is only the beginning. He ran one final compatibility test. The scanner's projection field flickered softly. Instead of showing a war map, it briefly displayed a layered image of the chamber. Clearer than before. Depth increased. Color variation improved. Probability threads became smoother. Then the image returned to normal. The engineers were silent. Vale stared at the machine. You altered its calibration. Marcus shook his head. I asked a question. The scanner hummed softly, as if responding. Vale looked at the diagnostic report. Efficiency increased. Stability improved. And deep within the adaptive core, new modular branches were forming. Paths the coalition had never programmed. Paths they had never imagined. Vale slowly looked at Marcus. You only requested compatibility testing. Marcus gave a simple nod. Yes. The scanner's energy rings glowed faint violet again, just for a moment. It was no longer recalibrating. It was evolving. The coalition engineers did not fully understand what Marcus was building. They only knew he asked for another short session with the scanner. This time, Marcus said calmly, I would like to test a visual overlay. Nothing inside the core, only the surface layer. Vale allowed it. The scanner stood in the center chamber again. Delegates filled the seats, curious and slightly uneasy. News of the recalibration had already spread. Marcus stood beside the control interface. His small human tablet was connected again. Compared to the massive alien machine, it looked almost like a toy. He typed slowly. The engineers watched carefully. They saw no attack code, no override attempts, only a thin program being written line by line. It is only an overlay, Marcus explained. It does not change your scanner. It changes how we see the data. One engineer muttered, "The data is already perfect." Marcus smiled softly. Perfect for war. He finished typing and pressed a small key. The scanner hummed. Energy rings rotated faster. Blue light shimmered outward. At first, the projection looked normal. The chamber appeared in perfect detail above the machine. Then something changed. The image deepened. It was no longer a simple map of matter. Layers began to appear. Transparent versions of the same room stacked gently on top of each other. The present moment glowed bright. Behind it, faint shadows showed the past. Echoes of where delegates had stood minutes ago. Soft outlines traced their earlier movements. Gasps filled the chamber. The image shifted again. Now thin lines surrounded each being in the room. Not sharp threads like before. These were softer. They pulsed with color. "What is that?" one delegate whispered. Marcus adjusted the setting. "It is probability," he said simply, but filtered. The harsh military prediction lines were gone. Instead, the projection showed possible outcomes as waves of color: blue for compads, gold for growth, red for conflict. The scanner was no longer showing only strategic advantage. It was showing potential. The chamber grew quiet. Marcus turned slowly and stepped into the center area in front of the scanner. "Let's try something simple," he said. He reached toward the interface and activated a capture command. The scanner focused on him. Light surrounded his body. Above the machine, a holographic image of Marcus appeared. Not flat, not simple. It showed him standing calmly. Then the layers unfolded. One version showed him slightly older, hair touched with gray. Another showed him smiling while standing in a different place, perhaps another world. A faint image showed him arguing in a council chamber. Another showed him laughing with children under alien stars. Each image shimmered like a soft echo. The room was silent. "This is not accurate prediction," Vale said carefully. Marcus nodded. "Correct. It is probability." Emotional resonance layered with time fluctuation. He adjusted another setting. The image zoomed closer to his face. Now something new appeared. Subtle waves of color pulsed from his chest outward. "What is that?" An engineer asked quietly. Marcus looked at the screen. "Quantum echo," he said. "Every choice leaves a pattern. Your scanner can see the pattern. I only change how it displays it." The delegates stared at the hologram. They were not looking at a weapon system anymore. They were looking at a portrait. A living portrait. Marcus lowered his hand. "May I try something informal?" he asked. No one answered. He smiled slightly and raised two fingers in a casual human gesture. The scanner captured again. The projection updated instantly. Now it showed Marcus in the present moment, making a playful expression. But around him, dozens of faint future versions flickered. One version looked serious. One looked tired. One looked proud. One looked uncertain. They overlapped gently, like transparent layers of glass. The scanner had taken a selfie. But it was not just an image. It was a story of possible futures, a story of emotion and change. Soft light reflected across the chamber walls. Delegates who once saw the scanner as a symbol of dominance now stared in wonder. This device was meant to reveal threats. Vale said quietly. Marcus stepped back. "It still does," he answered, "but it can reveal more than threats." He gestured toward the projection. "Every being here has layers, past actions, future possibilities, emotional patterns. Your scanner can see them all." One alien commander shifted uncomfortably. "This is inefficient use of advanced military technology." Marcus met his gaze calmly. "Is understanding inefficient?" No one responded. Marcus slowly turned the scanner outward toward the audience. "Would anyone like a portrait?" No one moved. They were too stunned. The scanner hummed softly, waiting. For the first time since its unveiling, it did not feel like a weapon. It felt like a mirror that showed more than appearance, a mirror that showed choice. Vale looked at Marcus again. You rewrote the narrative, he said quietly. Marcus shook his head. No, he replied in simple English. I only changed the view. The layered image of Marcus slowly faded. The chamber lights returned to normal, but the silence remained. The coalition had built a machine to intimidate humanity. Instead, a human had turned it into something else. Something that did not measure power. Something that measured possibility. And in that quiet moment, the entire summit understood one thing. The most advanced technology in the galaxy had just been used to take a selfie. The chamber did not return to normal after the portrait. Delegates did not resume loud conversations. No one rushed to boast about fleet strength. The 4D super scanner still stood in the center, glowing softly, but it no longer felt like a weapon display. It felt unfinished. High Director Vale stood silently for a long time. He looked at the engineers. He looked at the commanders. Then he looked at Marcus. You truly see this machine differently, Vale said at last. Marcus nodded. Yes. Not as superiority? Marcus shook his head gently. As opportunity. The word echoed in the chamber. Within hours, something unexpected happened. The human delegation requested extended collaborative access. Not control. Not ownership. Just shared development space. The coalition agreed, partly out of curiosity, partly out of pride. They believed nothing significant would change. They were wrong. Human developers joined the scanner's adaptive network remotely. They did not alter the core. They did not break security protocols. They wrote overlays, small programs, lightweight tools. The first adaptation came quietly. A human medical specialist suggested feeding biological scan data into the probability engine. The scanner adjusted instantly. A holographic image of an injured alien volunteer appeared, but instead of showing battle outcomes, it showed tissue layers. It highlighted unstable cells. It projected possible disease progression over time. Gasps filled the medical wing. The scanner predicted organ failure 3 days before it would happen. It also suggested the most stable treatment path. It can see illness before symptoms begin, a coalition healer whispered. Marcus nodded. It sees probability. Disease is probability. Within 2 hours, medical divisions across the coalition requested access. The second adaptation came from a human archaeologist. She connected ancient deep space relic coordinates to the scanner's mapping layer. The projection shifted. Instead of war fleets, it showed buried ruins beneath planetary crusts. It revealed hidden cities inside asteroid belts. It traced faint energy echoes from civilizations long gone. One projection showed a forgotten alien colony buried under ocean sediment. The room grew quiet. We searched for that world for centuries, one historian said softly. The scanner had found it in minutes. The third adaptation surprised everyone the most. A human environmental engineer accessed planetary climate data. She layered it into the probability engine. The scanner projected a damaged world scarred by industrial warfare. Then it displayed possible repair paths. Blue and green waves pulsed across the hologram, showing which ecosystems to recover, where to reintroduce plant life, how atmospheric balance could be restored. It did not just predict destruction, it predicted healing. Vale watched the projection carefully. You are using our greatest strategic device to repair worlds, he said slowly. Marcus gave a simple answer. It was always capable of that. Military commanders stood at the edge of the chamber, uneasy. One of them stepped forward. This is not why we built it. Marcus looked at him calmly. Why did you build it? To ensure control, the commander said. Control of what? Marcus asked. The commander hesitated. Threats. Marcus nodded. And what if the greatest threat is stagnation? Silence followed. The engineers reviewed the diagnostic logs. The scanner stability had improved since the overlays were installed. Adaptive efficiency increased again. It seemed almost pleased. Vale walked slowly around the machine. For cycles, he said quietly, we measured advancement by military advantage. He turned toward the projection of the recovering planet. And yet, this feels more advanced. Across the coalition network, reactions spread quickly. Medical stations reported early disease detection. Exploration fleets found lost relic sites. Environmental agencies requested planetary restoration models, all from the same machine. The realization began to grow. Humans had not mocked the scanner. They had not tried to weaken it. They had simply asked, what else can it do? One younger coalition scientist spoke softly. Why did we never consider these applications? No one answered immediately. Finally, Marcus spoke. Because you built it to win. He gestured toward the glowing machine. We built software to solve problems. Vale studied him. You do not separate strength from compassion. Vale observed. Marcus smiled slightly. We try not to. The chamber felt different now. Less tense, less competitive. Delegates no longer looked at humans with quiet judgment. They looked with cautious respect. The scanner hummed, projecting layered images of healing forests and rediscovered ruins. For the first time since its creation, it was not being used to prepare for war. It was being used to improve life. Vale lowered his head slightly. We may have misunderstood humanity. Marcus shook his head gently. No, he said. You only misunderstood the tool. The coalition members stood silently around the glowing projection. For generations, they believed power meant domination. Now they were seeing another form of power, understanding, possibility, repair, and slowly, quietly, a new question formed in many of their minds. If their greatest invention could be used to build instead of threaten, then what else had they misunderstood? The academy changed faster than anyone expected. At first, the alien instructors resisted. They had trained for decades under strict doctrine. Every movement was precise. Every tactic was memorized. Tradition was respected. But the numbers did not lie. After Daniel Harper's short demonstration, the commandant ordered a trial. For 1 week, cadets would train under human methodology. Daniel did not shout. He did not insult them. He did not speak about pride or honor. He simply rearranged their schedule. Less repetition, he said calmly. More adaptation. He changed the warm-up drills. Instead of practicing fixed combat forms, cadets were placed in unpredictable environments. Gravity shifted. Lights flickered. Terrain changed without warning. At first, they failed. They stumbled when the ground tilted. They hesitated when instructions were unclear. They looked for commands that never came. Daniel only observed. Do not wait for perfect conditions, he told them. Move with what you have. On the third day, something shifted. A squad that once depended on tight formation began spreading naturally when obstacles appeared. Another team stopped arguing about command structure and simply solved the problem in front of them. Their reaction times improved. Their energy use decreased. Combat simulations that once lasted 20 minutes now ended in 8. The Academy's data analysts were shocked. Efficiency increased by 40%. Injury rates dropped. Recovery times improved. Daniel did not celebrate. He only adjusted small details. Shorter planning. Faster action. Do not overpower. Redirect. Save strength. Use leverage. The cadets stopped laughing at him. They stopped calling him the gym teacher. They started asking questions. How did you learn this? Why do humans train this way? Daniel always gave simple answers. We learn by doing. We adapt because we have to. We make mistakes quickly, so we fix them quickly. By the end of the trial week, the Academy Council held a private review. The combat simulations were displayed in the main hall. One recording showed a 10-year elite squad facing a complex battlefield scenario. Under the old system, it took them 17 minutes to secure the objective. Under the human system, a different squad completed it in 6. No increase in force. No new weapons. Just smarter movement. The council members whispered among themselves. The commandant stood still. He had trained his entire life under tradition. He respected discipline. He believed strength came from endurance. But now he saw something else. Efficiency, not brute force. Not endless repetition. Optimization. Later that evening, The commandant requested a private meeting with Daniel. They met in a quiet observation room overlooking the training arena. Cadets below practiced new drills. Their movements looked smoother, less rigid. The commandant folded his hands behind his back. "How long," he asked slowly, "did you train to master this system?" Daniel looked down at the arena. For a moment, he did not answer immediately. The commandant continued. "Our cadets train for 10 years before they reach instructor level. Some train for 20. Daniel finally turned toward him. His expression was calm, almost amused. "I teach middle school, Jim," he said. The commandant blinked. "You are not a military commander?" Daniel shook his head. "No, you do not train elite soldiers on your world." Daniel smiled slightly. "I train 12-year-olds who don't want to run." Silence filled the room. The commandant stared at him, trying to understand. "You mean to say," he said carefully, "that these principles are taught to children?" Daniel nodded. "Basic balance, momentum, teamwork, adaptation, problem solving. It's not advanced combat science." He looked back at the arena. "It's just movement, efficient movement." The commandant walked to the window. Below, a squad completed a complex drill without verbal command. They moved like water, adjusting to each shift in terrain. "For 10 years, the commandant said quietly, "we believed discipline meant repeating the same action until perfect." Daniel replied softly, "Perfection is expensive." The commandant looked at him. "Then what do humans pursue?" Daniel answered in simple English, "Better." The word felt small, but it carried weight. The academy officially integrated human methodology. Within the month, training programs were redesigned. Years of rigid structure were replaced with adaptive modules. Cadets graduated sooner, but with higher performance scores. Other military institutions across the coalition requested human advisors. The term Harper Optimization Protocol began appearing in official documents. Daniel never asked for it. On his final day at the academy, a young cadet approached him. "Sir," the cadet said, "are humans physically stronger than us?" Daniel shook his head. "No." "Faster?" "Not always." "More durable?" Daniel smiled. "Sometimes." The cadet hesitated. "Then why do your methods work?" Daniel looked up at the sky beyond the academy dome. "Our greatest weapon isn't strength," he said. He turned back toward the cadet. "It's optimization." The cadet nodded slowly, beginning to understand. Daniel picked up his simple jacket and walked toward the exit. Behind him, an entire academy moved differently, not because of superior muscles, not because of fear, but because a gym teacher had shown them something simple. You don't have to be stronger. You just have to be smarter with what you have. And in that quiet shift of mindset, the galaxy learned something important about humanity. They do not win because they overpower. They win because they improve.